So in 1836, you see at least the first attempt on paper to deny the Pamunkey people their right to claim an indigenous identity. And that argument as to why we were not Indian was due to intermarriage with Anglo-white folks and African American and other Native people as well, not just Pamunkey people. So, which was not anything that was not new to us. At that time, we had no qualms about marrying outside of our tribe, which would have been the typical normal thing prior to, English colonial expansion. And those people who we would have intermarried with would have become part of our community. So at that time, there was no real understanding of us not even with intermarriage, we were not questioning our identity, but the outside was. And they used that concept, excuse me, of diluted blood or racial impurity to try and terminate our status as a treaty tribe with the Commonwealth of Virginia and remove us from our reservation lands. And that attempt occurred another decade after that. And a lot of people don't know there was also a brief attempt in the 1890s after a smallpox outbreak here on the reservation to also remove us from the reservation. Again, all with this concept based on us not being authentic, racially pure Indian people. So by the 1920s, with the rise of the eugenics movement, which was predicated on this fear of the loss of the white pure race, this was something that we had already come up against. This was something that was not new to us. And my great-great-grandfather, George Major Cook, who was chief at the time, fought long and hard. He went to the General Assembly. He petitioned them. He petitioned the governors not to pass this bill because of what it would do for our people. And this bill basically created a biracial state. You were either colored or you were white. You could not claim an Indian identity. Walter Plecker, who was the perpetrator of the bill, claimed that there was no racially pure Indians in the state of Virginia. So there were laws put on the books that denied us our right to claim that Indian identity on paper in a legal sense. So my great-great-grandfather, George Major Cook, fought hard, and it's actually oral history says that he died because of that struggle, because of the stress from that struggle. He had a heart attack in the early 1930s. And our family says it was because of that struggle, which ultimately, unfortunately, we lost because the bill was passed. And we had to be careful about how we outwardly identified ourselves and how we did that on paper, because it was illegal to put Indian on a birth certificate or a marriage certificate. And with only having colored or white being able to be put on your paperwork caused issues in terms of being able to quote unquote document our Indianness. But clearly, we have a reservation. We knew who we were, and one man's attempts to erase that wasn't going to work. And we're still here today. So clearly it didn't work, I'm proud to say. And we've been fighting, unfortunately, that mentality. There's this mentality that has not gone away about questioning the authentic Indian. Well, you don't look Indian. Well, what does an Indian look like? You don't dress like an Indian. Well, what should I be wearing? Leather, deerskin? I'm a 21st century human being, and we are 21st century modern people, but we are also Pamunkey. So as hard as that time was, and I can't even imagine what my ancestors were going through at that time, ultimately it did not succeed in erasing who we were. And a lot of scholars do use this term, well, they lost their identity with the racial No, we didn't. You just couldn't put it on a piece of paper. There was no loss of identity.